Hello everyone. This is the 13th part of the story, Blade God of Blood, Chapter 59 Blackheart. Note: Gressel, Demon of Earth, Abigor, Demon of Wind, and Wallow, Demon of Water. Note end. A tomb keeper's house is naturally not very good. The most conspicuous of them is an angel statue of Michael. When Gressel saw the angel statue, he was frightened at the door and did not dare to come in. He shouted, "This is a blessed angel statue with holy power on it." Of course, there is holy power. Without the protection of the archangel, I would have been discovered by Mephisto. Seeing Gressel's appearance, Slade sneered. "It seems that you should be a fallen angel." After finishing speaking, Slade turned to look at Bert, who came in, and asked, "What are you? Why aren't you affected by holy power?" "Maybe it's because I often donate money to the church," Bert said with a smile. Everyone was speechless. "Do you think angels can also be bribed? Also, you are a vampire. Why donate money to the church?" Bert didn't talk nonsense. He pointed at Damon and said, "He is the ghost rider of this generation. We came to you to ask how to get rid of Mephisto." Slade put the shovel aside and asked, "Aren't you here for the contract?" Bert sat down without speaking, and Damon said, "Mephisto asked me to retrieve the contract, but I won't help him." Slade lit the top cigar with a match, took a sip of enjoyment, and said, "The archangel told me that you would come to me, but I didn't expect there would be so many people, and you came earlier than I thought." "Archangel?" Coulson hurriedly asked. "Can angels still come to Earth? Although you are human, the breath on your body is disgusting." Slade snorted and said, "While I was praying, the archangel would occasionally say something to me. He once told me that the new ghost rider would be drawn to this cemetery by fate." After a pause, Slade continued, "And I will be responsible for guiding him to the right path. This is my mission." "Fate? I think it's money." Damon spread his hands and said, "Mr. Slade, I don't know what the right path is. I just want to get rid of Mephisto." Slade said, "I can tell you something, but are these people trustworthy?" "Bert must be trustworthy. As for this shield agent." Damon looked at Coulson and said hesitantly, "I don't know if he is worth trusting." Coulson was not angry. He said very kindly, "The goal of S.H.I.E.L.D. is to protect the world. You can trust me. I've heard a lot of this kind of stupid talk. You people are the best at saying stupid things, doing stupid things, and being stupid." Slade was very disdainful but did not drive Coulson away. He said, "First of all, you must understand one thing. Your soul was not taken away by Mephisto. It is still in your body. Just like me, all Mephisto did was put a vengeful spirit into my body." Damon was stunned. "My soul is still in the body?" "Yes, it's still there," Slade said. "It is because of this I can betray Mephisto. If my soul was in his hands, he would have killed me long ago. How could I still live to this day? We've all signed a contract, though, that Mephisto can take our souls whenever he finds us." Damon said thoughtfully. "That is, we can't let him find us?" "Yes, this is a shelter. Mephisto can't sense it, so I have been safe for so many years." Slade nodded and said, "If you want, you can live here with me. As long as you sincerely believe in the Archangel will protect you." This? Damon hesitated. This was not the solution he wanted. It was just an escape method. Mephisto tempted the believers of God to fall. An archangel tempted the evil spirit to betray. It sounds like angels and devils are playing chess. Bert's eyes flashed, and he asked Slade, "Mr. Slade, what is the spirits of vengeance?" "They are the angels of judgment sent by God to the world to punish sin, but they were lured by Mephisto to fall." Slade let out a puff of smoke and said, "That's why the spirit of vengeance keeps killing sinners." "So that's the case. I felt that Ghost Rider's style is different from that of the devil." Damon suddenly realized, and he asked, "Mr. Slade, is there a way for me to completely get rid of the spirit of vengeance and get rid of Mephisto?" "If there is a way, I would have used it long ago, and would I still stay here every day?" Slade said angrily. In addition, the Archangel once told me that the spirit of vengeance in you is different from other Ghost Riders. It is always in your body, and no one can separate you, including Mephisto. Damon was stunned. What? The spirit of vengeance has always been in my body? This is impossible, Slade said. You are very different. Even the Archangel is paying attention to you. Damon smiled wryly. I don't want it to be different. It seems that Mephisto didn't find you at random. There is a connection between you and him. Bert touched his chin and said, Ignore this for the time being. Let's take back the ownership of your soul first. Slade said vigilantly. Don't tell me you want to exchange the contract for his soul. I won't give the contract to you. Bert said. I didn't plan to use the contract to exchange it. Little hell or something, it sounds very dangerous, and Mephisto should not succeed. Exactly. Coulson nodded as he searched the house without a trace. Such a dangerous thing as a contract, of course, they should be kept by S.H.I.E.L.D. Slade shook his head. Without that contract, Mephisto wouldn't return the ownership of his soul to the Ghost Rider. Even if there was, he probably wouldn't return it. Bert said. Not necessarily. His son, Blackheart, came to the Earth. We can catch him and exchange him with Mephisto. Slade sneered. Do you think the devil will care about his son? If he doesn't change, I'll take the Blackheart to the global exhibition and let all the lords and demon gods laugh at him. Bert said. The son is not important. What about the face? Everyone looked at Bert speechlessly, thinking of this idea. You are the devil, right? Slade thought for a while, then shook his head. This method may not be useful. Mephisto is not as simple as you think. Always have to try, and we were originally going to deal with Blackheart. Bert said. Mr. Slade, do you mind if we have a night's rest near here? I mind, but why are you asking? Didn't you buy this place? Slade said angrily. Hey, the agent over there, this alien is so arrogant you don't care? Coulson spread his hands. No way, he has too much money, we can't control it. You institutions are unreliable. Slade scolded and said to Damon. You stay here, I will teach you some experience. The spirit of vengeance can be controlled, as long as your will is strong enough. After all, this body is yours. Mr. Slade, thank you. Damon is overjoyed. What he needs most now is the teaching of his predecessors. You can go. Slade started chasing people out, and Bert didn't care and left with Coulson. As soon as he left the door, Gressel reminded nervously. Boss, Blackheart is not so easy to deal with. You must not be careless. Bert asked. Is he strong? Of course the son of the devil is strong, Gressel said. Although he sealed most of his strength in order not to be discovered by Camartage, he definitely won't hold back so much when it is a crisis. Son of the devil? Bert snorted coldly. It's okay, if we can't beat it, Camartage will help us finish. Gressel nodded bitterly. Coulson suggested. Mr. Wang, maybe we S.H.I.E.L.D. can send some people to help. No need, Coulson. The reason why you are allowed to follow this time is mainly to let S.H.I.E.L.D. know the truth of this world, lest you continue to be so arrogant. Bert shook his head and said, All you have to do is open your eyes and see, that's all. Coulson was stunned for a moment, and then said, I understand this time. I will trouble you, Mr. Wang. Bert nodded with satisfaction. He patted Coulson on the shoulder and said, Coulson, I'm optimistic about you. You will be the next director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Don't joke, Mr. Wang. Director Fury has done a good job. Coulson smiled bitterly. Once these words reach the ears of the World Security Council, let alone this life, he will not be the director in the next life. It's not that he's not doing well, he's doing too much. I said, why do you let a paranoid victim be the director? Don't you have regular psychological examinations? Bert snorted and said, By the way, Coulson, I take care of you like this. If Camartage's people come, remember to defend me. Coulson complained. Mr. Wang, is this the real reason you have been keeping me? Bert laughed. No, I'm keeping you because I admire you. In the evening, Slade rushed out of the house anxiously, looking around, as if he had lost something important. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. "Old tombkeeper, did you lose this tattered shovel or this 10 million check?" Slade turned his head sharply, and saw Bert holding a shovel in one hand and a check in the other, looking at him with a smile on his face. Slade cursed, walked over and took the $10 million check and asked, "Is it possible to cash it?" Bert complained. "I thought you would take the shovel, old grave sweeper. You are not honest at all." "You got it all, what's the use of me taking it back?" Slade snorted and asked. "How do you know the contract is in the shovel?" "Because I can see through." Bert shrugged and said, "The $10 million check will be cashed. When this matter is over, you can use this money to enjoy yourself." "It is necessary, after so many years, I should enjoy it." Slade put the check in his pocket and asked, "What are you going to do with the contract?" Bert said, "Find a place to seal it up. I don't need this thing at all, I just take it away because you won't be able to keep it." Slade looked at Bert and said, "This contract is not a treasure, it is a responsibility." "I know." Bert waved his hand, turned around, and returned to the van. Frank had prepared the tools. He asked, "Why don't you just destroy this contract?" "If it could be destroyed, Slade and the others would have destroyed it long ago." Bert shook his head, broke the shovel, took out the contract from inside, and said, "Don't talk about this, seal the contract in vibranium." "Okay." Frank stopped talking nonsense, put the contract into Ivan's special instrument, then took out a can of vibranium and started to operate. The vibranium bought from Ulysses is all raw stone, and it is not difficult to process. When Wakanda first got the vibranium, they were still primitive and could still process it. Soon, the contract was sealed in the vibranium, and Bert picked up the vibranium and integrated it into his body. "Okay, Instructor Frank, now it's your turn to make a plan." Bert smiled and said, "You will be solely responsible for tomorrow's war." Frank said, "Gressel doesn't understand the strength of Blackheart. I only have 70% confidence in this battle." 70%? Enough! Bert nodded with satisfaction. Punisher never disappoints. At noon the next day, in a church outside Houston, a guy in black looked at the statue above and smiled disdainfully. "I killed your believers in the church, what can you do to me?" "Blackheart!" At this time, a gust of wind turned into a human figure in front of Blackheart, and said nervously, "Gressel has been arrested and is coming this way." Blackheart asked, "Who caught him, Ghost Rider?" Abigor said, "Besides the Ghost Rider, there is another alien of an unknown race. He has a strong bloody aura, but he is not afraid of the sun. They don't know whether to live or die." Blackheart snorted coldly and strode outside. How could he be afraid of mortals and aliens as a prince of hell? Abigor and Wallow followed behind. Abigor quietly used the wind to ride on Wallow. Wallow was stunned for a moment. Abigor made a gesture of counting the banknotes. Wallow nodded quietly, and a line appeared on his clothes. "Who has money? Who is boss?" Blackheart didn't know the little movements of the two demons behind him. As soon as he got outside the door, he saw Gressel being held by two people and walking towards this side. Bert stopped more than 10 meters away from Blackheart. He covered his nose and said in disgust, "Dude, the smell of sulfur on your body is so strong, you haven't bathed in a few days?" Blackheart recognized Bert's identity and sneered. "A mere vampire dared to provoke me? Aren't you just a second generation in hell, who relies on his father's shadow, and is arrogant in front of me? What a shit!" Bert cursed with disdain. "Without Mephisto, you are nothing!" "Shut up, Blackheart don't need to rely on him." Blackheart roared. "When I get the contract and build a new hell, I will go back and kill him, and I will let everyone know that I, Blackheart, am more powerful than Mephisto. My stupid son, you let me down!" At this moment, an old but powerful voice suddenly sounded. "If you really have the ability to kill me, then I won't say anything more, After all, you are my son. The problem is, you are so stupid that you don't even know the betrayal of your own. How can you kill me? Chapter 60 Mephisto. Who? The sudden sound made everyone turn their heads one after another, and saw a well-dressed, gentleman-like old man standing next to the stone pile and looking at them with a smile. Damon exclaimed, Mephisto! Go! Bert shouted. The Abigar and the Wallow were stunned for a moment, and then they activated their abilities together. The strong wind and flowing water trapped Blackheart. Bert rushed in front of Blackheart at the fastest speed and stabbed his head with a spear. Blackheart was furious, and a powerful black shock wave erupted from him, not only breaking the shackles of the wind and water in an instant, but also sending Bert and the wind and Wallows flying out at the same time. Fuck! Bert rolled in the air and fell to the ground, and his face was quite ugly. If it wasn't for Mephisto to spoil the situation, plus the slow movements of the Abigar and the Wallow, this plan would have succeeded. Although he successfully escaped the trap, Blackheart was not happy at all, but was very angry, because he made a fool of himself in front of Mephisto. I want you all to die! Blackheart roared angrily, and raised his hand to send a shock wave to Bert. At this moment, his head burst open, and blood and black gas splattered everywhere, but it was Frank who shot in the distance. Sniper rifle. Blackheart has an immortal body, and a headshot is not enough to kill him, but before he can recover, Frank activated the Gatling machine gun to shoot frantically. Da-da-da. Blackheart's body was riddled with holes, blood was gushing out, and black energy was floating around. Frank's firepower is not ordinary terror. Bert shouted, Abigar Wallow, long-range attack, I want to smash him to pieces. Yes, boss! Hearing the order of the new boss, the Abigar and the Wallow immediately controlled the wind and water to form a wind blade and water cone to attack Blackheart. This time, Blackheart's situation is even worse. He was so angry that he almost exploded, but he couldn't resist unless he unlocked the seal. The problem is that it takes time to unlock the seal. If that seal can hide you from camouflage, you can't easily unlock it with a loud cry. Bert will not be like the villain, talking nonsense to give Blackheart time. Vampire, you are so cruel! Mephisto snorted, raised his cane, and pointed at Frank's position, and a black light shot out. At this moment, the fire flashed, and a burning armor stood in front of the black light and burned the black light with fire, but it was Ghost Rider wearing armor. As for how the battle armor came about, it's very simple. The battle armor has always been underground and is controlled by the Gressel. This is the reason why the Gressel has not launched an attack. Bert held the vibranium spear and shouted, Mephisto, your opponent is me! Let me see, how much power do you have in the world? Mephisto put down his cane and said, You do have some skills, but do you think you can beat me? Of course I can, Bert said confidently. Mephisto, your appearance really surprised me, but the winner today is only me. Young vampire, I will let you know that this world is not as simple as you think. Mephisto snorted coldly and shouted to Damon, Your soul belongs to me, I want you to sleep. With Mephisto's order, Damon's soul immediately fell into drowsiness, and the spirit of vengeance controlled the body, and it roared. Set its sights on the evil-filled Bert. Mephisto is also very evil, but he has a way to cover it up, so Bert became the first target of the spirit of vengeance. Bert silently took out the remote control and pressed it, the armor disintegrated, the flames on Damon's body quickly dissipated, and he fell asleep on the ground back to his original state. You think I don't know Ghost Rider is unstable? Bert sneered, appeared quickly in front of Mephisto, and stabbed him in the chest with a spear. Mephisto didn't fight Bert, and his body turned into black energy and rushed into Blackheart's remnant body. Blackheart's aura suddenly soared, and the black energy on his body swelled wildly, whether it was Frank's bullet or the wind and Wallow's. The attack was all smashed by the black gas. Immediately afterward, Blackheart returned to human form at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then, he shouted, and his body quickly turned blue and enlarged. What was even more terrifying was that his breath was still improving, as if the great devil had come into the world. Gressel shouted in horror. Boss, Blackheart is going to regain its true strength. Withdraw! Bert shouted. At this moment, a black light flew out of Blackheart, which turned into a black light curtain in the air, trapping everyone inside. Bert immediately used the vibranium spear to pierce the light curtain, but it couldn't pierce it at all. Frank also shot, but to no avail. At this moment, Mephisto's voice sounded. My good son, this layer of light curtain can isolate your breath for 3 minutes. You can take the opportunity to kill them to take revenge. Is it good enough for you? What a fart! Bert scolded. As soon as 3 minutes arrive, Kamartaj's people will come to teach your son to be a man. No, be a devil. Isn't that right? I can take the opportunity to take the contract to San Venganza village to recover the corrupted souls. Mephisto smiled and said, Isn't it just right for my son to help Dad? Bert thought of something, and asked in shock. Blackheart's seal was released on purpose by you. You gave him the things that can hide his breath? That's not true, he found that thing himself. I just helped him make it a little bit. Mephisto said, To be honest, this son disappoints me a bit. Fortunately, Ghost Rider is still very good. He helped me find the traitor. After more than 100 years, I can finally wash away this shame. Bert understood, and he asked, Have you played tricks on the Ghost Rider's soul? Of course I did tricks. How could I make a second mistake? Mephisto laughed. Vampire, enjoy the surprise I gave you. I'm going to get the contract. As expected of the most cunning Hell Lord. I underestimated him. However, he also underestimated me. Bert sighed secretly. At this time, Blackheart has recovered its true body, a blue demon with a height of more than 3 meters, long hair, and a long tail. The Gressel, the Wallow, and the Abigail were trembling with fear, and the current breath of the Blackheart is too terrifying. You are all going to die! Blackheart roared, the void almost solidified, and he was fooled one after another, and he was already mad. Bert shouted, Blackheart, if we fight, only Mephisto end up happy. We should cooperate. It's useless. Blackheart didn't mean nonsense at all. He raised his hand and released a black energy shock wave toward Bert. This shock wave was at least 10 times stronger than before, and even Bert couldn't dodge it. Bert! Frank was furious. Even when he shot at Blackheart, all the bullets shattered as soon as they approached Blackheart. Blackheart laughed horribly and was about to continue shooting when Bert got up from the ground and shouted, The contract is here. I have it. What? Blackheart was stunned for a moment, turned to look at Bert and said, Is the contract of San Venganza in your hands? Yes, so Mephisto is destined to be disappointed. Bert said, Blackheart, let's talk about it. We can be allies. You want to delay time? Blackheart sneered. Whether you have a contract or not, you will die, and so will I. That's not necessary, Bert said very quickly. As long as I suck most of your blood and make you extremely weak, I can hide you with the breath of the vampire so that Kamartaj will not you. Blackheart said disdainfully. Drain most of my blood? Then I'm going to be slaughtered by you. Listen to me, time is running out, Bert said impatiently. After that, I will take you to the village of San Venganza, and let you open up a new hell, so that you can regain your strength, and I can live, the best of both worlds. What's more, Mephisto will be very angry, if you do this. Frank frowned a little when he heard the words, but out of trust in Bert, he didn't say much. As for Damon, he's still in a blissful coma. Blackheart was a little moved. He thought about it, and asked, You can't bear my blood, and how can I trust you? It doesn't mean that I want to absorb it. Why don't I store it in my body? Bert said speechlessly. How do you believe me? Brother, you are a devil, and of course, you use a contract to ensure fairness. Don't tell me you won't sign a contract. Then we'll just die together. Of course, I will sign the contract. Blackheart snorted unhappily and said, Are there specific terms? It's very simple. I will help you build a new hell. If you can't do it, you will take my life. Bert said. In the middle, add some clauses such as not to hurt me. By the way, you must also promise that you will not shoot me after the event is completed, and let me leave safely. Is that so? Blackheart lowered his head and pondered. Bert urged. Hurry up, 3 minutes will be here soon. Please let me not delay the time, and don't delay yourself. Blackheart looked at Bert and asked suspiciously, Why are you so anxious? Bert said, Do you think you are the only ones who don't want to meet Kamartaj's mages? In the eyes of Kamartaj, you should also be damned. Blackheart said self-righteously. He thought about it for a while, and found no problem, gritting his teeth. Okay, sign the contract. After speaking, Blackheart directly tore off a part of his skin and then wrote a clause on it with fresh blood. After writing, he raised his hand and threw it to Bert. Using your skin? It's eco-friendly. Bert quickly glanced at the contract, dripped blood on it. The contract flashed with blood, and it was announced. Bert threw the contract back to Blackheart and said, Your blood! We still have the last minute. Okay. The Blackheart took the contract and took out his heart with one claw. As soon as the heart is separated from the body, the aura of Blackheart immediately dropped sharply, because this is the source of its power, which is completely different from the ordinary blood that can be restored at any time. The Blackheart threw his heart to Bert and said weakly, This is my blood of origin, don't absorb it. When I build a new hell, give it back to me. You're stingy, but I have to absorb a little bit, otherwise I won't be able to hide your breath. Bert took Blackheart's heart into his body with his hands, then closed his eyes, and carefully controlled the blood to start devouring it. The power of the Blackheart is extremely strong. Bert only swallowed a little bit, and there was a feeling of puffiness. His heart was full of excitement. After swallowing all the blood of the source, his strength will increase several times. What, give it back to Blackheart? What went into his blood god's stomach? Do you still want him to return it? Keep dreaming. 30 seconds later, Bert opened his eyes, strode to the weak Blackheart, and said, Okay, you change back into a human form, and I will begin hiding your breath. Okay. Blackheart didn't talk nonsense, and changed back to the original state. Bert put his hand on him, and his hand turned into blood, covering Blackheart's whole body. That should do the trick. Bert took back his severed hand, and while he recovered quickly, he shouted to Frank, Frank, the light curtain will disappear after a while, and you will immediately leave with Ghost Rider and Gressel. The Blackheart shouted, The Ghost Rider is staying. He is Mephisto's knight. Bert said, No, he's leaving. Blackheart glared at Bert. Bert was not afraid. Blackheart gritted his teeth secretly. The time was too tight, and he was still exploited by this guy. Fortunately, the main terms are no problem. That's enough, the rest, we'll talk about it after the new hell is built. No one can disobey Blackheart. Bert! Frank shouted worriedly, and Bert waved his hand and said, No problem, there is a contract, he can't hurt me. This is the only way to survive, we have no choice. Frank saw Bert's gesture and knew that he had other ideas, so he didn't say more. Soon, after 3 minutes, the black light curtain disappeared, and in the sky, a black feather that seemed to be broken at any time slowly floated down. Let's go! Frank immediately left with the 3 demons and Damon, and Bert caught the black feather and asked, Is this the treasure you found? Blackheart didn't care about the black feather. He looked around nervously and said, Yes, I found it in a space gap. It can hide the breath, but it only has an effect on weak beings, so I just claimed my strength, and Mephisto didn't take it away, probably because of this. After a pause, Blackheart added, This feather has been exhausted by Mephisto, and it's useless. Weak? In your eyes, am I also weak? Bert shook his head and put the black feather in his pocket. Of course you are weak, Blackheart said excitedly. Kamartaj's people didn't show up. Our plan was successful. Vampire, hurry up and take me to San Venganza village. I'll take you there. Bert smiled, His right hand clenched tightly, the blood on Blackheart shrunk crazily inward. Blackheart tried his best to resist, and roared in horror. Vampire, what are you doing? Bert laughed and said, Why do you ask? Of course, I'm trying to trick you. This marks the end of part 30 of the story. Blade God of Blood. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.